Today we shall solve 2017 AP ESET question paper, EC branch questions. So let's go to the first question. So the question is, a high resistance reading in both forward bias and reverse bias directions indicate which type of a diode? So if you see the four options, a shorted diode, good diode, effective ohm meter, and an open diode. Here, generally in forward bias, a diode acts as short circuit, and in reverse bias, it acts as open circuit. However, open circuit means resistance is infinite, in short circuit, resistance is 0. So, in both the cases, you will be having a high resistance, which means practically it is having a resistance infinity. So, it can be considered an open diode, and it is not either a defective ohm meter or good diode. So a high resistance reading in both forward and reverse bias direction indicates an open diode, and an open diode will not allow current flow in either of the direction. Okay, coming back to the next question. So which capacitance dominates in forward bias? So simply, if you remember the diode, anode and cathode, of this, during forward bias you will be having only diffusion capacitance, or during the reverse bias you will be having transition capacitance. So we'll see the explanation for this. So diffusion capacitance, this occurs mainly during forward bias, and when you apply a voltage, that is to the PN junction, P to the P and N to the N, you have the concept of recombination of electrons and holes. So simply, diffusion capacitance is when in which the diode is forward biased, and because of the electrons and holes recombination, you will be having this particular type of diffusion capacitance. Also, we have space charge capacitance or depletion capacitance, which is basically in reverse bias. So if you remember a capacitor, the capacitor capacitance is proportional to epsilon A by D, or distance between the plates. Similarly, in this case, the capacitance at the depletion ranges changes with the applied voltage. So the capacitance of the reverse bias PN junction diode decreases as the voltage increases. So simply remember this. So in a reverse bias PN junction, it can be considered as a capacitor, and the capacitance depends on the width of the depletion region. So coming back to space transition capacitance. So transition capacitance is also called as depletion capacitance, and it is denoted by CT, and it depends on the change in electric charge per change in voltage. So here we have seen the concepts related to diffusion capacitance and space charge capacitance. So the next question, what is the diode which is typically used for tuning circuits? So mainly tuning circuits use varactor diode, which the student must know. So varactor diode is shown in this particular circuit. So tuning circuits generally use varicap diode in a circuit and requires a tuning circuit. Also, always it is kept in parallel with the existing capacitance or inductance, and a DC voltage is applied in reverse bias across the varicap. So varactor diode is mainly used in tuning circuits. So the next question, now this is a very standard question in which many number of times they will be asking comparison of FET and BJT. So you have to remember a particular table to answer this question. So this is the comparison. FET is always a unipolar device. However, BJT has both electrons and holes, whereas FET will either have only electrons or either holes. Also, the student has to remember FET is a voltage control device, whereas BJT is a current control device. So if you remember the equation, IC is equal to beta IB. So here collector current depends on base current, whereas VGS, the gate to source voltage, will control the field effect transistor. However, when it comes to resistance, FET has a higher input resistance compared to BJT, but the drawback is it will have a slower switching time compared to a BJT. So all the 4 points are very important to answer any question related to comparison of FET and BJT. So next, what is the percentage of regulation when both no load voltage and full load voltage is given? So percentage of regulation is nothing but V no load minus V full load divided by V full load into 100. So here it is given as V no load is 20 minus 19.8 divided by 19.8 into 100. So this comes around 0.2 divided by 19.8 into 100, or simply I can write 2 by 198 into 100, or 1 by 99 into 100. So this is simply 0.1%. Sorry, 1 by 100, which is 1%. So next, negative resistance characteristics in a unipolar junction transistor. So you have to see the characteristics of UJT. So in this unipolar junction transistor, this is somewhat related to tunnel diode also. In this particular region, as voltage increases, current value is decreasing. Therefore, resistance will decrease. Generally, as per Ohm's law, voltage is proportional to current, and as voltage increases, current also increases. But here you get the concept of negative resistance, in which as voltage increases, current is decreasing, and hence you can consider it is having negative resistance. So this happens basically at this particular point. So see this. So this is the valley point. So the negative resistance at this particular junction, you will be having this concept in UJT. So this is also a very standard question which comes in many number of exams. Transformer utilization factor. So the student has to remember a particular table, because we will be getting many number of questions from this topic, and the table is comparison of various parameters for half wave, full wave and bridge wave. So the first one is the highest number of diodes are used in bridge rectifier, whereas in half wave it is single diode and full wave it is 2 diodes. So I will be only highlighting the important points in this table. So the VDC, the DC voltage is Vm by pi in a half wave rectifier, whereas it is same 2 Vm by pi in bridge wave rectifier. Whereas the peak inverse voltage PIV is maximum in full wave rectifier, but it is Vm in both bridge wave and half wave rectifier. Coming to our question for this bit, so the transformer utilization factor is highest in bridge rectifier and least in half wave rectifier. Coming back to rectifier efficiency, it is 40.6% in half wave rectifier, and it is double 40.6% in full wave and bridge wave rectifier. So sometimes there is a chance of asking the form factor also, which is 1.11 for full wave and bridge wave, whereas it is 1.6757 for half wave. Also, triple factor is also same 0.48 for both half wave and both for bridge wave and full wave, and it is only 1.21 for half wave rectifier. So coming back to the next question, what exactly is a voltage buffer? So voltage buffer is always the emitter follower combination or common collector. If we see the circuit diagram of this, we will have a better understanding. So see this, the common collector is typically referred as emitter follower because the emitter follows the base minus the diode drop voltage. Also, the output is constrained at a voltage of about 0.6 volts. This is because the collector resistance RC is made 0. So to remember a common collector circuit, the student has to observe whether RC is 0 or not. It is basically used in very important bit, impedance matching. So next, which of the following coupling provides high power amplification? So the student has to know the benefits of all the different types of couplings, namely direct coupling, RC coupling, transformer coupling and impedance coupling. Among all these, the highest power amplification happens in transformer coupling. I will show you the circuit diagram why the value is very high. So if you see this is a transformer coupled amplifier in which stage 1 and stage 2 are transformer coupled. So this has the best impedance matching and it has the highest gain, and also the best benefit is the power loss is very low. Also it is an efficient operation. Next, coming back to RC coupled amplifier, this will be having a constant gain over a wide band of frequency and you will be having low cost because you are not using a transformer. However, the frequency response is also very good. And next, coming to direct coupled, in which you are directly connecting one stage of transistor amplifier to the next stage, where you will be having a very low frequency signal. And here also, since there is no transformer or any diodes or any RC coupling, the cost is very low. Also the features are, it will be having minimum number of resistors and excellent frequency response. So these are the 4 important factors the student has to remember when it comes to a transformer coupled amplifier. So the next question, which type of amplifier will exhibit a crossover distortion? So firstly, student has to know what exactly is crossover distortion. So this diagram shows you what exactly is crossover distortion. So this crossover distortion basically is in class B amplifiers, and this is because both the transistors are being switched off at the same instant of time as the waveform crosses the 0 axis. This is a standard question which is asked in many number of exams, many number of times. So the answer is class B. Next, what is the input impedance of an ideal operational amplifier? Now the student also has to remember a table which will have all the properties of an ideal op amp. So this is a table which represents the ideal values of an op amp. So the gain of an op amp is very high, therefore it is ideally infinite, or theoretically it is approximately greater than 10,000. So also the bandwidth is infinite. So the factors, observe all these particular factors are infinity or very high values, CMRR, slew rate. When it comes to 0 values, an ideal op amp will be having output resistance, input bias currents, offset voltages and offset currents approximately 0. Also the input resistance must be very high and drift must be very low. So all these properties are applicable for an ideal amplifier. So coming back to our question, so here it is an ideal amplifier, so that is why you will be having infinite. Okay, so the next question: in operational amplifier, the voltage required to make the output 0 for no signal condition is called input offset voltage. This is a direct definition of an input offset voltage, because input offset voltage is nothing but the voltage that must be applied between the two input terminals so as the op amp will obtain 0 volts at the output. So to get V0 as 0, the voltage which you have to supply at both the terminals is called input offset voltage. So in generally it has, ideally the output of an op amp should be 0, but however because of grounding issues you will be having some different DC potential. Next, which type of multi-vibrator is used as an amplitude comparator? So this particular Schmitt trigger has an application which is used for the purpose of amplitude comparison. So if you remember this particular graph, so the voltage will be fluctuating between two particular values based on the cutoff voltage. So simply amplitude comparator is nothing but a Schmitt trigger. Next, in bootstrap sweep circuit, the amplifier gain must be ideally unity, and I'll show you the reason why it must be unity. So if you see this bootstrap ramp generator, here the transistor Q1 is used as a switch, whereas this second transistor is used as emitter follower, so with unity gain. So see this, so transistor Q1 acts as a switch and Q2 acts as an emitter follower or unity gain amplifier. So here the gain is 1. Okay, so here based on the switching action you will be getting the ramp signal, but however the question is what is the amplifier gain, which is unity gain. Next, what is the frequency of oscillation for an stable multi-vibrator using 555 timer? So if you see this expressions, only this third expression is your frequency expression in stable mode. So first we will see the circuit diagram of this stable mode. So this is your stable mode. R1 is connected between 8 and 7, R2 is connected between 7 and 2 of a 555 stable mode op amp. So here duty cycle is R1 plus R2 divided by R1 plus 2R2, whereas frequency is R1 plus 2R2 into C. Next, superposition theorem can be applied only to circuits having linear and bilateral elements. It will not be applicable for, it is also applicable for resistive elements, but mainly the definition is linear and bilateral elements. So first we will just revise the superposition theorem once. What exactly is superposition theorem? It is a theorem in which the electrical circuit states a linear system. So the response, it may be voltage or current at any branch of a bilateral linear circuit having more than one independent sources. It can be voltage source or current source. So it is equal to, I is equal to I1 plus I2. So I will take independently each of the source and I will get the values. I add them to get both the sources it's taken at a single time. So this is the definition of it. So next, for maximum power transfer theorem, internal resistance of the source should be, so when your load is equal to when your source, simply I can say when your load resistance is equal to your source resistance in terms of resistance and in terms of impedance. If my load resistance is equal to my source resistance, I will be having maximum power transfer. So many times you will be asked to calculate the value of that particular power also, which is V square by 4 RL. However, this is the condition. So when your load resistance is equal to your Thevenin's resistance or source resistance, maximum power will be transferred from source to load. Next, consider two loops A and B. So if you have an ideal voltage source E in loop I and loop I in loop B, then interchanging the positions. Now this concept of interchanging will only happen in reciprocity. In superposition, you will be taking individual sources at a time, whereas when it comes to the other theorems, we could not have heard this. But reciprocity is the only theorem when you will be changing the sources. So symbolically, I can imagine if this is a circuit in which I have voltage source and current source, this functionality is very much similar when I interchange the current source and voltage source to input and output terminals. Next, application of Norton's theorem to a circuit yields. So student has to remember first of all what is Thevenin's and what is Norton's theorem. So any circuit can be replaced by a voltage source and a Thevenin's resistance, and any circuit can be replaced by a current source and R Norton. So if you observe this question is basically related to transistor. So how exactly is related to transistor? So if you remember, the input terminal here is an application of Thevenin's theorem, and the output is related to Norton's theorem. So here you have a current source and a admittance parallel to it. So now let's see the solution. So equivalent current source and admittance in parallel is a property of Norton theorem, and application is basically in H parameter model of transistor. So the next question, imaginary part of admittance. So the student has to remember this particular triangle. So impedance is R plus JXL is your Z, impedance, resistance and reactance. So exact reverse is conductance. For R it will be 1 by R, for XL it is susceptance. Okay, so remember this particular things. So we'll stop it here.